In New York City, there's a patch of the East Village surrounding 6th and 7th Streets that has long been known as Little Ukraine. And as tensions build along the Ukrainian-Russian border, expats living here are watching developments closely.
When Putin says that Ukraine should not even be a separate country, that's when Ukrainians are worried that Ukraine will be wiped off the map.
Andrei Dobriansky's political and cultural organization also hosts wounded Ukrainian soldiers returning from the fighting.
They visit our churches and they explain directly what their experience is on the front line, how scary it is when they're sitting in a trench and all of a sudden their radios go dark because Russia is able to jam, so they don't know what's happening.
These are families who have been affected by the war and everything happening in the East. They've resettled, they have little kids whose fathers are now fighting out East.
Christina Melnick and Natalia Lisk work for a Ukrainian youth group that provided Christmas backpacks for the children of soldiers who couldn't be with their families.
If you have an 8-year-old whose father has been out East for 2 years now, she hasn't seen him, she's worried about his safety. And now with the escalation and kind of more of soldiers being put to the front, they're understanding, even if they're little, they understand that, they might not see their dad for another year, another 2 years.
A little more than 1.5 million Ukrainians and their descendants live here in the United States. The New York City metropolitan area has historically received the largest number of Ukrainian immigrants, with more than 275,000 in the tri-state area of New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. Marika Schust is the director of the Ukrainian Museum in New York City.
One of the reasons really for the museum and for our existence is to show the world that Ukraine has its own history, has its own culture, has its own language. It was always associated as though Ukraine didn't exist, that Ukrainians were Russians, which was not true.
Schust is worried about the people back home.
War in today's age is even worse than maybe the wars beforehand, and and it's a very real kind of possibility right now. So of course all of us are very worried, and, that hopefully it will not happen, but there is a very good likelihood that it will.
And if history does repeat, the exhibits in this museum may end up telling the story of a country's past with a future unknown. Frank Ucciardo, TRT World, New York.